Good evening. Welcome to the Monday, May 6th, 2019 meeting of the Grafton Planning Board. Our first item on the agenda is public input. Does anyone have any input on something that's not going to come up in the agenda? Okay, moving on. Draft report, proposed zoning amendments, 1 through 6.
Yeah, so because we have the public hearing for the proposed amendment that will be on the special town meeting in another 5 more minutes, do you want to take care of the decision for 12 Elm Street, and then we can come
Let's
back
do
to
it.
the planning board report after we close that?
Let's do that, yes. I don't think I saw any problems.
Sharon identified a good question as far as in the decision and in the narrative for the application, I'm just going to bring it up. The decision as well as the narrative identifies as stated in finding 7 here, what I put up on the screen, that the property is an existing single-family dwelling, and that the structure will improve to contain 2 dwelling units, a 2-bedroom unit located on the first floor, and a 2-bedroom unit located on the second floor. That's within the narrative and the bullet list as far as what they're requesting. When you look at the floor plan, floor number 1 shows 1 bedroom identified and then an office. It looks like that office does have a closet, so it would be technically potentially identified as a bedroom under building department requirements as far as how to count bedrooms, but he didn't identify that as a bedroom on the plan. So,
And it also seemed to be like an extension of the bedroom, not a separate room.
yeah, so I emailed the applicant trying to get clarification on this. So we can do basically 2 things. We can follow the narrative because the use is for 2 bedrooms, and we can make a finding that the floor plan does not, as it currently is submitted to the board, indicate a 2nd bedroom on floor number 1. And if he then alters the floor plan to then create that 2nd bedroom one, he submits that plan back to us to verify that it's in conformance with the decision, or we say it's a 1 bedroom based on the floor plan submitted, and that for a 2nd bedroom he does the same thing. He submits a revised floor plan just showing how that 2nd is going to be there. So it is inconsistent in what he has shown. The 3rd option is basically saying we continue just considering this until Monday, just before town meeting, and then we get that clarification from him and then vote on it with his information.
That strikes me as being the sort of the easiest path forward is if we base this decision on information that's consistent with what the applicant intends. That if that's acceptable to him, and that would just mean if everything else about this draft decision looks good to us, and just we want that one last T to be crossed, and we could deal with that fairly quickly.
Yeah, I mean, we can just post for 6:15. Special town meeting
Yeah.
starts at 6:30. It would be.
No,
7.
special town meeting starts at 7.
Oh, okay. Okay, then we can
Post for like
we can
6:30,
post for 6:30.
6:30, 6:45.
My cable TV committee meeting starts at 6:30 too. They knew I had planning board.
Yeah.
The only question I have there is if I look at the office on the plan, it's not a very big room. And the actual closet is not in the office. It's actually off.
Outside the door.
Right. And it's very small. I don't know how you would even fit a bed in there.
By normal standards, doesn't it normally a closet plus a hung door to create a partitioned?
Yeah, so here they call it some sort of shoebox, and then there is a separate door to this office area. Here they have a closet off of the bedroom. You know, technically he could break up even some other space to create that second bedroom, but would be a change of the floor plan.
How about we, do the one where we say it's one bedroom and he can come back another time? If he wants to.
Or give him the option.
No, but the point is to take action tonight.
Oh,
We're running a little thin on people who are gonna be able to vote on things.
Yeah,
What's the wish of the board?
do you have a problem with us voting on it on Monday?
the 13th, 1 week from tonight.
It's gonna be a long night,
Yeah, it is.
maybe really
And we
long.
still have the 20th.
He's not here.
Oh.
Down to just the four of us. I'd like to get this done, but
So are you saying we can't, you don't think it's possible to get it done Monday?
It's possible,
It's
but
possible, but it might be more convenient from our perspective to get it done tonight. And
I just wouldn't want to do it in haste. So what are you saying, that we only approve the one bedroom on the first floor?
That
One bedroom and change the
essentially
narrative,
because
one bedroom
we
and
have
office?
the proposed floor plan that shows one bedroom. If he wants to come back and modify it, we can put in the question ends up being whether or not, all right, let me back up. The application is for a two-family. It's not specifying a two-bedroom or, you know, one bedroom or whatever. It's for a two-family, so that separates things down into two residential units. It is possible that the board could say that the board approves the two-family with one bedroom on the first, two on the second, and that a second may be permitted provided they submit a floor plan so that we can make sure that it is consistent with this decision, staying solely within the footprint of the building.
Yeah.
Or we just force them to submit not force them, but otherwise he would just have to submit a
Revised.
modification application. Then we handle that in June sometime.
so
Yeah, I
doing
mean,
that
and it-
results in an additional fee for him, though, correct?
And legal ad too.
Yeah.
in a sense, if what we are approving is the conversion of a single family to a two-family, does it really matter how many bedrooms are in each floor? If it's a two-family, it's first and second floor, the interior layout could subsequently be changed without coming back to this board.
Right. If we were on, if we had a septic system, that would be important because the total number of bedrooms could be tied to the design of that septic system. We're on sewer, so we're not
So that's
tied
not
to
a,
that.
right, it's not an issue.
The parking and all that was tied to two bedrooms for each unit. So then there was plenty of parking in the driveway. It really ends up being inconsistency with the floor plan and then what the narrative is.
Yep, and would it be sufficient for us just to note as a finding that there is this inconsistency? But I doesn't seem to me like the bedroom count, given the other, those issues that could be affected by the bedroom count are not relevant if they have, they have sufficient capacity for two bedrooms and, if their floor
It's a
plan
labeling
shows one
error.
bedroom and an office, if
Yeah.
they convert the office to a bedroom, that's really.
Yeah. And that's
there.
where I think members of the board were right when you look at that first floor plan. What is shown within this area, it is conceivable. I mean that things could be moved in order to create a second bedroom, say even within that dining room area. This is rental, but we don't have that as an exhibit. So it becomes a question as far as, do you want to build in any sort of flexibility that says submit a revised one showing how this would work to the board for review with the consistency of the decision, or say just come back for a modification?
We have hearings now
Yep.
at 7:30. We're not heading towards closure here fast enough.
Yep.
we'll move on and come back to it later. Do we have a notice for the 7:15 hearing?
Pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, the Grafton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 6, 2019, commencing at 7:15 PM in the Conference Room A, the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, Grafton, Mass. The purpose of the public hearing is to provide interested parties the opportunity to comment on a proposed amendment to the Grafton zoning bylaw, which has been submitted to the 2019 Spring Special Town Meeting warrant as follows. ZBL 2019-07 to amend the Town of Grafton zoning map, ZBL Section 3.1.2, by zoning the following properties to Chapter 43D Priority Development Site Overlay District, 230 Worcester Street, map 25, parcel 1, 244 Rear Worcester Street, map 25, parcel 2, and 244 Worcester Street, map 35, parcel 1, as shown on the plan entitled Proposed Town of Grafton Zoning Map Amendment, Chapter 43D Priority Development Site Overlay District, Worcester Street, on file with the town clerk. A complete copy of the text of the proposed amendments to the Grafton zoning bylaw is on file with the town clerk in the planning board office in the Grafton Municipal Center and is available for inspection during normal business hours.
So essentially, and I'm just putting up these three parcels that are described in that legal notice. This is the Wyman Gordon site. Sorry, I'm just trying to zoom out just a tiny bit here. This is the Wyman Gordon site. The three parcels are here. I think at the last meeting I mentioned how myself and Tim had met with some people from Wyman Gordon and a real estate broker that was retained by Wyman Gordon, looking at carving off about 25 acres. This is zoned industrial and office light industrial, sort of similar to what we have up around Centec Park and Grafton Science Park. And one of the questions was as far as whether or not the site was fell under expedited permitting for, say, life science and industrial and additional development. I prepared a sort of quick and dirty article. It's not dirty, it's just quick, because under Chapter 43D expedited permitting, we're not changing uses. We're basically just identifying parcels that then fall under this program, 43D expedited permitting, which basically represents a town commitment to have all local approvals, not building approvals, but all local permitting, conservation, board of health, planning board within 180 days. We did recently, back in 2015, designate areas that were owned by Rushwan Properties, which is now UPS. They own the parcel that is zoned 43D. And this article was submitted through the town administrator's office and board of selectmen onto the special town meeting warrant to classify these three parcels under that expedited permitting district. Chapter
Special
43
town meeting?
on special town meeting. It's Article 17 on the special town meeting warrant. One of the things is that Chapter 43D requires the owners of the properties to sign off on that the properties are within 43D. And so it does reflect sort of a agreement between the property owners and the town as far as expedited permitting. Wyman Gordon only owns, this parcel and this one. That center one is actually, this one here is actually owned by New England Power Company. They own parcels that are basically, you can see off of Creeper Hill, connects into Shrewsbury and Worcester and down. They actually are the land owners for these. So in the map that I had AppGeo, who is our GIS consultant, prepare, highlighted these two parcels that are owned by Wyman Gordon. I was waiting for a revised map from them that does identify that middle parcel. Even though we zone, if we included that middle parcel within the 43D as as printed in the warrant, that parcel will require signature for it to actually comply. So because of that, I was really contemplating as far as just amending the article to strike that parcel because of the fact that it requires the utility company to sign off and agree to be within 43D. And that in this area, any sort of sale of the Wyman Gordon land doesn't involve that parcel. So whether or not it's 43D, it doesn't matter because it would involve someone purchasing that parcel. And if someone did want to purchase it, they'd have to relocate all the utilities or at least give an easement back. And that's not a very quick process.
No,
So-
that particular parcel is occupied by high voltage transmission lines, and those
Right.
are, shall we say it's highly unlikely that those would ever be moved.
Yeah.
Well, does 43, whatever D, require that everybody, all the owners in the zone, sign off before any of them are eligible?
So 40, no, it doesn't, but it will only apply to those parcels that have the signature. So
Well,
what
that's
happens is that, say we approve the bylaw, paperwork goes off to the property owners, and then the interagency permitting group, which is the entity that was set up in order to monitor and approve 43D development properties, because there are certain tax incentives that then they qualify for as well. They will only certify as compliant those that they have the signature back.
No.
So if we include it in the district and we never submit the paperwork, it really doesn't make a difference. It's just that it won't actually be a fully executed parcel within the 43D framework.
I think it's simplest to, since we've got it this way, go with it this way.
Okay.
Anybody disagree?
Well, I think you should remove, because isn't that what you called parcel one
Yes.
in the document?
Yep.
I would just remove parcel one from the document. That way there's no question as to what are the areas you're changing the zoning on. Because if I was looking at that, not knowing about this conversation, I would have an issue with approving it.
So, sorry, I'm just bringing something up. Where was it? Oh, back at top. So this was originally what was the first map that AppGeo had produced that shows everything uniformly, and then that's where it becomes a question, just including that rectangle.
Is there any practical value to including the triangle beyond it, top left?
No, because that necessitates that it would be 43D within Millbury.
No. The parcel that you are trying to include, right where
Yeah.
right where you used to be.
So you're talking about
Yes.
both of those.
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about the one on the left, the little triangle.
That one
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah. I don't see that having a whole lot of use.
No, it doesn't, because that's the backside of a Millbury parcel that also is Wyman Gordon. But it has to do with that Forge, something Forge.
True Forge, I
True
think
Forge,
it is.
right. That is on the Millbury side and accesses before you come into Grafton. Then there's a wetland system that then actually this front portion of that utility corridor is. So to have the back portion of that property 43D and not the rest of that parcel within Millbury, realistically, that doesn't make
point.
any sense.
Yeah,
And-
it doesn't seem like there's much point in those two smaller parcels being included, this, because it has no real value.
Right.
43D has no value with respect to those two parcels.
Right.
You know, that corner one that's connected to Millbury,
Yeah.
if the Millbury side of that ever gets, if 43D ever becomes a reality for that, then including this on the Millbury side might make some sense.
Yeah.
But from a Grafton's perspective, no, it's keep it simple and just take the one big main parcel.
I have a stupid question. Why is it curved in the back towards the,
This?
track? No, the
The two different zones.
two different zones. Why is it curved?
That,
Yeah.
I think there's a rail spur.
Railroad,
Ah, okay.
railroad siding, I don't know, but I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure. Does anybody, this is a public hearing, does anybody here have anything to say about this item before we finish up with it? No, okay.
So how would you describe that in language? Because based on what I understood you guys to say is that you want parcel 2, but just the portion that's to the right of
No,
parcel
I-
1, correct?
No, actually, it's exactly, I believe, the big parcel,
one
just the
big
big
parcel,
parcel.
yeah.
Get rid of the power line parcel and the little bitty triangle
So
parcel.
we'd be just this, which would be,
Just that parcel.
right.
Oh, okay. So map 25, parcel 2 is the one to the right of the utility corridor.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Keep it
That sh-
simple.
that should be-
Yeah.
Yeah, map 35, parcel 1.
Okay. Are we satisfied with our discussion?
Yes.
So there's one question, been some chatter this week related to citing of marijuana facilities and things like that. So for purposes of those watching or those that may watch after the fact, 43D and its impact on a parcel like this that is in industrial and light industrial, which is eligible for a marijuana siting facility of sorts by special permit. 43D expedited permitting just is an overlay that's not going to directly impact or automatically grant.
Yeah.
It's still a special permit process. So
No.
just
and-
explaining that for
Exactly. It doesn't change on the uses that are permitted by zoning, but what it does is it establishes a very formal process by which 180 days starts from the submission of a complete application for any and all approvals that are before the town. So let's say something came in, needed stormwater, needed planning board for a special permit, needed something through the Board of Health, maybe something through the ZBA. All those departments identify what their submission criteria are, applications, all those things. You have pre-submission meetings. You go through and you determine something is complete, and then that starts the clock. We know from once, especially working with conservation on some larger projects, that we're pretty good at offsetting each other as far as reviewing some of these things. But there's not a formal, we're just basically having applicants work with us to make sure that we're on a consolidated timeframe. For 43D, it is a specific, strict process as far as you don't start that clock when someone just gives something. You have to actually review, make sure it is fully complete with all those departments before then you notify them that they are complete and that 180 days starts.
Yeah.
So while someone would say, well, you can approve it faster, not necessarily. That means all of their ducks have to be in a row before they can even start that clock. Versus here, they could come with planning board and then they run into problems, then they don't submit to conservation and they just say they take more time. So it's not as sort of lenient as people may think. It is actually pretty strict, and it requires them sufficient investment to produce all those documents, traffic studies, all that, before even knowing whether it's possible.
But that makes our job so much easier.
Yes. Yes.
But often we find out that there are ducks not in the row once we start looking at it.
Yeah,
Right.
but you're better
But
off.
has the clock already started, or
Yep.
does the clock reset?
Within chapter 43D, the process, essentially is going to have a planning board representative sitting on it as all this stuff comes in. And then something is deemed complete, members from conservation, like a member of the conservation committee, a member of the board of health, member of planning,
Okay.
all would be participating in that determination.
Okay.
Well,
Is there anything we
Thank
have
you.
to do?
You summarized better than I could, so.
Anything more before we close the hearing?
Move to close the public hearing,
Second?
direct
Moved
staff
in second.
to, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Direct staff to draft a, decision. taking
Well,
into account
actually, we're gonna have to do the decision tonight, aren't we?
Well, it would be the planning board report.
Report,
So the draft is provided. We can just, once we finish with some of the other things, bring everything back and then identify what else needs to be within.
So we basically already have a proposed draft report for this.
Yes.
Yeah, if the motion were to be to, just with the dropping of the two parcels,
I got it as a Word document right here, so we can easily.
but if that were a motion now,
So moved.
then is there,
Included in the original, included in the motion to close the hearing, right?
yeah.
Correct.
And did somebody, second, yes. Further discussion?
So just to be clear, you're only gonna have map 35 parcel 1 in this?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Because it seemed like there was a bunch of area to the right of that utility.
Well, this
easement
is
that was
up
part
on
of
the screen.
parcel,
This is the parcel that's in it.
That's everything,
Everything to the right of the utility is included.
Oh, okay. And that's parcel 1?
Yep.
Oh, okay. It's a map.
I know the zoning district line made it look like there's two parcels.
Yeah, okay, okay. Yep, makes sense.
okay. Further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted unanimously. We'll come back to the other decisions later, which we were talking about. Brings us to, the library.
This is a continuance, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, Ken Best, DRA Architects, South Windsor, Connecticut. Since our last meeting, we did, at least I have Jeff Santa Cruz with me, who produced the preliminary traffic report for you to review. And that was the work that we felt was necessary to provide sufficient information for the traffic study. And the way it was left at the last meeting, that we would decide tonight whether additional work in that area would be required. And Jeff is here if you had any questions on that material.
Did you pass on my comment?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
So, and Jeff, I think I sent it to a different person on the library team, but I sent a copy to Ken. One of the things that we had a question on was basically some of the nomenclature within the traffic study, especially because of our orientation and experience of the library. Got a little visually or mentally, and painting a mental picture, a little disoriented as far as references to north-south, when our experience is almost like an east-west, just because of that portion. When you zoom out and you are on a regional scale and you can see this little jog is the only portion that's east-west, can understand that. But just want to at least mention that I did raise that with them. And then also, if you could just give a high-level sort of overview as far as the findings. I did review it, but I don't know if we have any public in the audience that's waiting for this one.
Sure. For the record, my name is Jeff Santa Cruz with Wesson Sampson. So as we talked about last time, we looked at the site driveways, and to make it easier for you, what I call north and south, I'll try and refer to as east and west, make it a little easier. We went out, had done counts, We took a look at those counts. We applied a seasonal adjustment because the January counts are lower than the peak in this area. So we want to make sure that we're not arbitrarily looking at low volumes when there might be higher volumes during another time of the year. Then we, excuse me, took that and we looked at speeds out there as part of our ATRs just to show, what's happening out there. Are cars traveling faster than the posted speed limit? And that relates specifically to sight distance requirements because they are based on the speed of the area. What we found in the speed study was that posted speeds 30 miles an hour, and the actual in the eastbound westbound direction, the speeds are 30, 31 miles per hour in the 85th percentile. And the 85th is normally what we use to post speed limits in most states. And so therefore that gives us about 85% of the traffic is traveling at that rate. There's the few outliers that travel faster, as we all know, and there's some that travel lower, but that gives us a good indication. All of our sight distance measurements were looked at with that as the governing factor. For the driveway, that's the ingress, which would be western driveway. So that'd be the little loop that's going to be where the drop-off is for the book return and things of that sort. When you look to the west or left as you're sitting in the driveway, I did look at this, even though it's an entrance-only driveway, I did look at the sight distance from both directions, assuming if a car was coming left in and somebody came around the corner from, call it the west or the north, around the curve in the road from the common, or if someone was slowing down to make the right in and somebody was coming up behind them, I wanted to make sure that that vehicle had adequate sight distance. So we look at two different types of sight distance. Stopping sight distance, which basically is there enough time for a vehicle traveling at the speed limit to comfortably come to a stop if there's something in the road, a ball, a child, another car, whatever. And then intersection sight distance, which is where when the car is sitting back from the road, do they have a nice sight line out to the cars coming toward them so they can make the movement. And what we found is in both cases, for that driveway, we met the minimum required distance. We were able to get, 200 feet looking to the left out of that driveway, as if a car was turning left in or coming in. That does meet the minimum stopping sight requirement. When we look at intersection sight distance based on the speed, it is slightly larger as the desirable, but the minimum is that stopping sight. So if a car was to turn in, could another car have enough time? So we were able to meet it at that location. I know there was a question, I believe, last time about the sight distance at that driveway. We're actually moving it slightly further away from the intersection than where it is today. And when I did it, I did treat it a little conservatively. I did assume that the car that's coming around the corner is seeing the car only when it's in its lane and it's not looking across the lane through the corner. So if there's a truck or something else coming around the corner, they don't block it. If you actually look, if there's no other vehicle there, you can see quite a ways more around the corner. But for the conservative, we assume that the car might be blocked by, say, a truck going around to the heading north as that, or heading, east as that car is heading west. Then we looked at the other driveway, which is what I term the south driveway, you would term the east. That had the same, it had actually had 275 feet of sight distance to the corner, so basically looking to the west, because it is further from the corner, but I use that same point of reference. And then to the south, of course, it's nice and straight, and so, to the east, it's nice and straight. So you've got a long, flat sight distance, and there's not any trees or obstructions that are blocking it. So that gave me a feeling that the driveway can operate from a safety factor well, because people can see people coming in and out. Then we took a look at the trip generation, which you saw before. We added that to what we had out there for the existing conditions. From a previous conversation we had way back in November, I think, at the time there was no other major developments in the area that would generate traffic on the roadway. So what we did is we went and looked at Mass DOT's traffic counters in the area to get a growth rate. Because your requirements say that we have to look at a 5-year design horizon. So we looked at the 2024. What we found was about a 1% growth rate over the last 10 years seems to be about the value to be used in this area. There might be a peak 1 year of 2, but then you might go back down, but that over the years seemed to be about a 1%. So we applied that to the background growth, to the background numbers to get us our no-build conditions under 2019-24. With that, we added the site-generated traffic, and call those our build conditions. And then as part of the analysis, we take a look at the no-build condition and compare it to the build so we can see what is the incremental impact of the proposed development. And what we found was there's little to no effect. The northbound left turn today operates at a reasonable level of service C without the development, the library expansion. If we put the library expansion in, it continues to operate at a level of service C, has slightly more delay on a vehicle waiting to make its left turn in to get an acceptable gap in traffic. What we did do to be conservative is when we ran that analysis, we assumed that all the site traffic turned in that southern driveway. That way, that driveway is seeing the most impact of traffic going in and out of it. That way we get, if that had some bad operation, then we could have said, okay, we have a problem we need to address. But in reality, the traffic will be split somewhat between the two driveways. But as I say, for a worst case analysis. And then in the driveway turning out was a level of service A, which is very, very good with very little delay, very, very little queuing in both the no build and the build condition. So overall, what we're saying is that we see little to no safety or operational impacts to the site or the roadway as a result of the proposed expansion. Any questions?
I noticed it looked like a traffic counting going on almost exactly there tonight as we came up. Nothing to do with this.
It's for the townhouse project. For the other Grafton multifamily one we have open.
On the other side.
They're doing additional
West
traffic
Street.
counts.
West Street, okay.
Yep.
It's right about, right near
coincidental.
railroad tracks.
Just so happens that those I think they just appeared today. I didn't notice them yesterday.
Now we'll compare their numbers. Anything from the ward?
The stopping distance, going back to your first, the entrance only portion for the loop, I appreciate you looking at it from that perspective. I know you mentioned from sightlines the conservative approach with the angles versus the straightaway there, but my question is more on the stopping. At speed limit itself, you said you met, are we scraping, are we just meeting? I know you said we moved.
200 is the requirement.
Okay.
We met 200 feet of sight distance conservatively.
Okay, my concern is more from a standpoint that, A, how many people do truly follow speed limit all of the time, for one. For two, if somebody was coming out of South Street there and the person coming around from the common taking that corner then has to accelerate because that person was coming through that stop sign to avoid a collision, they're now increasing their speed right before then somebody potentially is queuing to turn into that driveway. So that stopping distance is now potentially even more critical.
And that, let's be honest, could happen on any roadway. It could
Correct.
happen at your
Understood.
house drive, the next house drive.
Correct.
The other thing to keep in mind is when we took speeds out there, we actually had the counter in about the location where you saw it today. So at the corner, would the speeds potentially be lower because you are coming around a corner to begin with? We took the worst case and assumed that on the straightaway, everything was 30 in the area.
Yeah, because north and south and east and west,
Sorry.
I'm not quite sure.
Sorry.
Are we talking about a car coming in from South Street and turning in, or a car coming in from?
He's talking
The
about
north.
both. He's saying if a car's coming in from the common, so it's gonna make the left-hand corner, so heading eastbound,
Oh, okay.
and somebody were to suddenly pull out from
South.
South Street, he was trying to avoid a collision, he may speed up heading eastbound to avoid a collision, and how would that put him at the next location?
That's a pretty safe intersection, though. There's really good sight lines there. I mean, you can really see everything. I don't think it's accident prone there at all.
And like I say, I was conservative, I always assumed that truck was in the, especially with a very, very sharp corner, that if you did have one, I would never want to feel comfortable saying, I know it's gonna be, you know, sight line through.
I've seen trucks, big trucks, having trouble there, but I'm not clear why what is being proposed would make any difference. It's the same situation, the driveways if anything, a little bit better position.
Right.
And that's only a turn-in driveway.
Correct. So they're only really, if you think about it, they're only having to worry about a car coming from one direction, whereas out, you're looking both ways, back and forth. So you're trying to make two decisions at once. You're trying to see the car and make a decision, do I have enough time to pull out? These cars are either making a right in, so they're already slowing down with hopefully a blinker on if they're coming eastbound, or they're coming northbound and making the left in, and they're only having to look in one direction, which is a little bit easier than when you're sitting in a driveway looking out at traffic from two different directions.
I think I'm probably not taking those corners at 30 miles an hour.
Most people don't.
Not very often.
But you do get the occasional, so that's why we tend to look at it.
Yeah, you got a few cowboys.
It is closer than it is today to that intersection. It will be closer than it is today to that intersection, from what I can see, right?
No,
No, it's further.
it's further away.
The entrance?
The one-way entrance.
Oh, interesting. It looks like
They've
it's closer.
all along, I don't know whether I've seen it on the drawings, but all
Right
along
here,
they
right?
said that it was a little bit further east than the current entrance.
Okay, it just looks closer from this map.
Yeah. Well, the building disappeared.
Oop, it's
Oh,
coming
there it
back.
is. Okay. So,
Too quick.
oh, okay, yeah. So that's where the hand is. Oh. So the existing driveway is right behind
Yeah,
the library,
right.
where we're gonna be quite a ways
Further
the road,
down?
further
Yeah.
Further
down.
It's
east?
about where the sign is, give or take,
Okay.
a little bit
Yeah.
further.
Where that parking sign is they just put up?
There's the main, right there. That's about where the driveway ends up being, give or take.
The first driveway.
Correct. And then the second one is further down near the gravel parking.
Oh, yeah, okay, yep.
It looks to me just
Yeah.
very,
A little
very
bit further.
roughly
You're right.
that the proposed entrance only driveway is a good 20 to 30 feet farther to the east than the existing
Correct.
driveway.
So that does provide you safer
Yes.
operation
Yep.
than what
You're right.
is there today.
Okay, this is public hearing again. Is there anybody who wants to comment or ask a question or anything? Okay, anything from up here? Anything more that you want to do tonight?
Well, it would be nice if you could, agree or not agree to whether or not the parking study as presented is sufficient
The traffic study, yeah.
for the traffic study.
Can we do that?
I think it's
What's the
sufficient.
wish of the board?
From what I can tell, it
Yeah.
seems to be sufficient.
What about these waivers?
That's essentially what the board, as it relates to the traffic study, would be considering.
Considering?
Granting is traffic study requires 4 out of 5 members to vote in the affirmative to waive those traffic requirements, traffic study requirements.
Do you know if Graves has looked at this at all?
In their last
comment.
comment, member, they basically said that they thought the traffic material looked fine. This is basically, I think it's providing a lot of the same information I think we probably had a feeling for. But it's good to really document as far as what the impact will be as far as level of service and between existing and then proposed. We're essentially looking at a comparable.
Do you see any prospect that we're going to get to a decision on this before we lose 2 members?
Before we lose the second member, yes. One of the things that I'd recommend, because I believe tomorrow night you all are going to be in front of conservation.
That's correct.
There's some comments that I think you're awaiting from their wetland peer review, conservation's wetland peer review about plantings closer to the wetland, or at least wetland mitigation plantings that are needed. There are some final comments that Leah out of conservation is expecting. That may result in one final rev of some of those plans as it relates either to the landscaping plan or at least the proposed site plan, and drainage plan. My thought, so that we can receive those final documents, is that we keep the hearing open while then I'm drafting a decision.
Who are we gonna have to vote on it?
It's site plan review.
Yeah.
So,
Who we're gonna have three people,
yep,
presumably, all of whom have been present throughout the hearing.
Well, I mean,
everyone's been
Just
here.
guessing how the election might come
You
out.
know, it's basically, you know, with the three of you and Sharon, you know, we'll be able to review that decision.
Is our next meeting, regular meeting on the 20th?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Day before
So-
the election.
So on the 20th, Sharon is still a member of the board.
Yeah, don't pack it too much.
And
Yeah, we're gonna schedule an all-day meeting on the 20th.
All night.
and you're saying you think that we can be at decision time
Yes.
on the 20th? Okay.
What I was told from conservation is that the comments are really just fine tuning, that it was just having to do with the plantings associated with the wetland. But if that revolves in any sort of disconnect between what the final plan is with conservation and planning, I'd rather be on the same page so we're all referencing the same thing. That really, outside of revision dates, is not going to impact writing. So we get a revised couple of sheets that then has a new revision date. We just identify what just was received, and then we review it.
So your expectation is that, you know, any changes resulting from the Conservation Commission review will not materially affect this board's
No.
decision?
No, my understanding is only in the buffer area.
The thing, 4 out of 5 required for what we're talking here,
But only
but
three.
then it's only 3.
But-
If it
yep.
spills over, I would think maybe that you'd have to go revisit the 4 out of 5 vote.
So, and that's where one of the things that at least is interesting, and maybe it's just how I'm reading the bylaw, is that the board doesn't have to wait to take a vote as far as granting those waivers until you have a written decision in front of you. You're able to take that vote, grant those waivers, because you never know what those final documents would be without those waivers. And then that just gets memorialized in the decision that the board voted on such and such a date to grant those waivers.
But if it spills over to new board members, then you don't have 4 out of 5 who voted to grant the waivers. And it's a new hearing.
The 4 out of 5 is really a administrative action. It's not a special permit. So, for example, say 4 out of 5 members voted to do it, but then only 3 out of 5 members voted in the affirmative to approve that application. That still passes approving that
Yeah.
decision.
My point is that we're talking about tonight taking a vote in the context of the current membership.
Yep.
And it requires members who wouldn't be here after the 20th, if the vote was to be taken then, you start a new hearing, it's different people, it's a different waiver. In any case, we'll cross that bridge
If,
on the 21st, or probably a little
So if
further
it
down the
extends
line.
beyond the 20th,
yes.
if it extends beyond the 20th,
Well, we'll find
that
out,
point.
we'll find out, actually,
or I could
somewhere towards
I
the end
could
of the
abstain and it
21st,
won't
we'll have a
affect-
much better idea of exactly how this comes out,
Okay.
I could abstain and it won't change the count.
whatever. So, does somebody want to do something?
Would,
Are we voting on the waivers?
Yeah.
let me, you know, propose a motion to grant the requested waivers.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted unanimously.
Thank you.
Best we can do.
Okay.
And with that,
So I mean, just so that we can make sure we keep track of things as well. The board does have Graves Engineering sort of final review dated May 3rd. Essentially, there's no outstanding issues from Graves Engineering standpoint. Perhaps you could just identify why there's a planting plan A and planting plan B.
Well, we would, yeah. if you remember, on the rear of the site,
Oh, yeah, I remember.
so we have this is planting, I'm not sure whether
This
this
is
is A
B.
or B, but I
This is
think this
B.
is A.
This
where
one
we
on the
have-
screen's B.
Okay, this is where the exit comes out of the children's room and turns to the right, and it proceeds up a ramp to the circular storytelling area, and then there's another ramp that continues on up to the front of the building to connect in with the circular sidewalk. And our concern was that with the storytelling area in the back of the building and the exit from the children's room, or one of the exits being in the back of the building, that there might very well be a tendency for people to go towards the parking lot. So in lieu of taking this approach, we then did another plan, and we figured if we drafted the two plans, it might make the understanding of the issue a little simpler, and also we might be able to give a better understanding to the Conservation Commission that they could approve, one or the
Yeah,
other.
this plan, this is Plan A, and that's got the walkway toward the parking lot.
Going
And
to-
the issue with that one, as I recall, was part of the walkway was in the 25-foot.
Right, right. But one of the
Big
things that we
boundary.
talked about at conservation was that the areas where we're gonna have to replicate wetland, where we've got to do some excavation work and putting new soil and what have you, that area is gonna be disturbed. And that disturbed area is in the area of where that sidewalk would go. So, I believe now that the landscape architect is showing doing some more wetlands planting in the buffer area. As, because that's all gonna be disturbed, and that maybe if we do the wetlands planting, we could make it an educational opportunity for the kids going through,
Yeah, so this would be one of the issues that's still open before the Conservation Commission,
that's
right?
gonna be discussed tomorrow
So
night. Yeah.
so the outcome of the Conservation Commission decision will determine, among other things, which of these two planting plans
That's
needs to be
correct.
followed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Totally unrelated, just noticing from the drawing as a question that, so to the top right corner there on the image, it's now a sitting area outside the back there? It's no longer an amphitheater style setup? I remember seeing.
Yeah, I think because the way the grades were,
Yep.
there's still gonna be a slope walk going up to that area, but yeah, they built a sitting area around the one side.
So it's not a multi-tier,
No, originally
Okay.
it started off
Outdoor
as a
theater
grass,
almost,
just
yeah.
a grass slope, and then
okay.
they thought this might be a little bit better to control the grades.
So presumably in 2 weeks, we will know which of these planting plans is going to be used,
Right.
and we will know where that sidewalk goes. And as one of the issues that Graves had noted, whether there will be a walkway up that
Up
has
to the front
handrails.
of the building, yeah. Yes.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Just a few niggling little details that will be resolved by Conservation.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? If not, do you want to request a continuance to the 20th?
I request a continuance to the
Alright.
20th, and I'll sign the piece of
And correspondingly, I will move that the board grant the applicant's written request to continue this hearing to Monday, May 20th, 2019 at 7:30 PM.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted unanimously. Okay, now I think we need a notice for
Oh,
Meadowbrook,
Meadowbrook Manor.
Meadow Manor.
Meadowbrook Manor.
ready?
Ready.
The planning board will hold a public hearing on Monday, May 6, 2019, commencing at 7:30 PM in Conference Room A at the Grafton Memorial Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, to consider the application for a definitive plan approval of a 3-lot residential definitive subdivision, Meadowbrook Manor, on property located at 15 Meadowbrook Road, as shown on Grafton Assessor's Map 67, Lot 11. Said property is located in a low-density residential R40 zone. The application owner is Sugar Realty Trust, care of Robert G. Flynn Sr. and Madeline Flynn. Copies of the plan are available for public inspection at the Planning Department Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, or on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton-ma.gov at the Planning Department Development Projects webpage.
Okay. The paperwork I picked up today seems to have plans and a letter from the engineers, but not the newer, the Graves and engineering department and whatnot.
Correct. Those are posted online.
Yeah.
Yeah. There. Of concern. Okay.
Good evening. My name is Andy Baum from Summit Engineering and Survey, here on behalf of the applicant, Sugar Realty Trust. With me tonight is Robert Flynn Sr. and Madeline Flynn, who are the project proponents. They actually reside at 15 Meadowbrook Road. For the orientation of the board on this plan, here, the intersection of Meadowbrook Road and Upton Street, or 140, is about 1,000 feet down or south of the driveway. They reside at number 15 on an existing house located here. If any of you folks have been out to the site, you'll notice that most of this area in the front is sloping up gradient from Meadowbrook Road, and it consists primarily of horse pasture, lawn area located here, and there's an existing barn here. Last summer, we had filed a preliminary subdivision application that was approved by the board. I think all of you were present for that, where we discussed the approach or design approach of this particular project. And if you recall, the proponents wanted to create two single-family lots, relatively smaller. As you noted, it is an R40 district, which is a 40,000 square foot minimum. Frontage is achieved by creating a private way. You'll see here where the gray is, that's their existing driveway that services their existing house, and then there's a gravel driveway that goes up and services the barn located here. And we had put before the board, and we think we had some positive feedback in terms of trying to widen the driveway and shim the driveway as best as possible. So you can see this brown area, it's widened to about 20 feet wide pavement width. We're shimming to adjust the area, but the overall intent was to try to keep this a low impact development because we're only creating two lots. So there was some concern regarding the ability to turn a fire truck around. We received the fire truck specs from the fire department for their largest ladder truck. And if you look on the last sheet, there's some specific geometry that addresses how that truck would maneuver in a forward backing motion to exit the site. The remaining land is about 9.3 acres. The total property is 11.8 acres. As noted before, the intent is for this to be a privately held road, not to be turned over to the town for maintenance. Just for edification, that brown area is about 6,200 square feet of additional pavement for the roadway itself. As noted in the plan set, we did do some soil testing to prove that the sites could sustain on-site septic systems. The Board of Health had witnessed those soil testing. And just to storyboard out a general what the site may look like, although it may depend on what houses people want to build there when the time comes. But we showed two single-family homes with a related 4-bedroom septic and tried to sketch out what the site would look like, so to prove to the board that it could be supported. Drainage is an open swale concept. As I noted before, most of this water comes down. There is a wetland that bisects the property here. So off of Pigeon Hill, a lot of this water comes down, breaks out, and actually goes to the south and onto the Davy property here, and continues to the south. The open field itself goes toward the Sweat property, and then ultimately to Meadowbrook Road. There's an existing swale on Meadowbrook Road that goes underneath the Sweat driveway into a drop inlet catch basin and into the wetland complex across the street. Excuse me. To keep everything simple, we're proposing a swale, kind of shaded green here, a very light hue, that goes into a detention basin here that controls the increase in runoff coming from the development. It discharges back into the swale down here and then ultimately through. There was some issue of ponding or flow from Meadowbrook. There's a high point right in front of this abutter's driveway here that flows down across Flynn's driveway and then into that ditch. So we've added a cross culvert here to be able to manage that water and not have any water flowing across that roadway entrance. There were several comments from Graves Engineering as well as the Highway Department and the Board of Health. I don't know if it's the mood of the chair to read through all these itemized. Or if I want to hit on the big
Ordinarily, I
points.
think we have, you'll produce a response.
Absolutely, yeah.
That goes back and, but for me, I wait until our engineers say everything's okay.
Okay,
They're the experts.
Or until we get to where,
yeah,
we're left with having to make a decision.
okay.
I think it'd be probably better to
Sure.
do that.
So, that kind of concludes our general overall premise of the project. If the board or any of the audience have any questions, I'll be happy to try to address them.
Questions from the board? Questions or comments from the vast audience? Anybody have anything to say?
So my my thoughts really deal with the quorum issue.
The which?
The quorum
Oh,
issue.
quorum issue.
So let's say we already know that we're going to need some responses to Graves as well as issues raised by the assistant town engineer. That's going to produce a revised set of plans that then is going to necessitate one more review by peer consultants. Our next meeting ends up being May 20th. The next day, or at least I should say for May 20th, one of our members on the planning board will not be here. Well, and that's a permanent situation because he'll be relocating to Texas. The next day, another planning board member will no longer be sitting on the board because of the election and is not running. So if there's a write-in or if there's, and maybe there is a write-in campaign, but have no idea, but that would necessitate that we would only have for following May 20th, only 3 members that could act on an application.
Okay.
The other 2, if we appoint someone for Mike's spot, and then if we have a write-in for Sharon's, they would not be eligible to participate. That would necessitate us to re-advertise. We would be able to re-advertise, say, we have plenty of time to do it for the 10th. And then we'll know coming into the 10th whether or not we have 2 people in those positions. And if we have to just open it and then continue taking no testimony to the next meeting, then at least we'd be okay to do that. But we are running into a quorum issue, and it's not as far as having a quorum of people sitting on the board to open a meeting, but enough people to act on an application. That's
Yeah.
sort
We
of
have-
where we are.
We have to be able to give 3 yes votes, regardless of whether it's 3, 4, or 5.
Right, it's a 5-member board.
Yeah, and this particular, this is a definitive subdivision approval. There is nothing in here that requires a supermajority, is there?
Correct.
No, but it does require.
It does require 3 board members
It
to
goes-
vote in the affirmative.
It goes beyond a majority of a quorum. Or a majority of those voting.
Right.
It
It is a-
requires 3 yes
Right.
votes.
It requires 3 yes votes, and that's the potential
Some,
issue.
some court decided a while back.
Yes. And
A
so with-
majority of the board.
So with only 3 members on the board, or having been on the board from
Throughout.
tonight, and perhaps the next, if we do this continue this on the 20th, after the 20th, there will only be 3 members of the board
And so you better treat us nicely so we all three agree. Or more realistically, we would have to consider, you know,
So,
what
and-
Joe said
Yeah.
later.
And the only reason why I'm sort of raising this up now is that we basically have until next week to advertise for the 10th. If we wait until
Yeah.
the 20th to try to figure that out, we will not make the 10th. We will have to then push it back further.
Yes.
So
In the interest of making sure this can move forward as expeditiously as possible, you know, we could make the assumption that we will have to re-advertise for the 10th.
Unless you have feedback from headquarters, I really doubt that we're gonna have an appointment completed by the 10th.
And that's where,
Knowing how that goes. I mean,
And
they have to
that's-
advertise.
This is true.
and that's where we may not, but we may as well. Who knows? But if we continue to the 10th and we only have 3 members, then there would always be the opportunity for the applicant to request a continuance with no testimony to push it back one meeting so we can get someone on.
But they weren't here.
But we wouldn't have taken testimony. We
No, but
essentially
tonight's
started back
testimony-
over.
What we call re-advertise, right? It's started essentially.
Can't you do a Mullen?
Would you
There's
just
only
fail
been
to
one?
open the hearing?
That's what I mean. Is
If you don't open the hearing, it doesn't matter.
exactly. You take no testimony.
Testimony,
Right?
Yeah.
doesn't continue in the context of tonight's hearing.
No.
It
No,
starts as
no.
a new hearing.
Right.
And you're gonna, for the 10th, figure out when you need to know whether you're gonna have a person. You may know how the election, the write-in comes in. Because backing off from the 10th, the advertising, advertising, timeline is fairly tight after, because you're not gonna know until at least the 21st whether you've elected somebody.
And that they even accepted.
Well,
If they got
that
it
you-
right in, that they even accepted it.
Well, that might, I don't know how long they have to, but it's not instantaneous.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think that we can go that way, but I think that, we're gonna still be pinched when the time comes.
We're gonna be pinched, and it's just if we don't have an appointment or two on the 10th, then we just continue the hearing. We don't open up. We saying because of not having a full
Okay,
contingent,
okay.
we're just postponing it a week.
So is there a request to continue the hearing until the 10th?
Do we need one yet? Mr.
So
I don't think
so.
we need-
So the reason why I'm raising this is that say you provide revised plans. Graves typically needs about a week in advance of our planning board meeting to turn that around. So your reviews. That means that you would have to be having your review done or your revisions next Wednesday to get it to us for Friday for us to then get something for the following Wednesday before our next Monday meeting.
Okay,
The board will not be able to review a decision that night. So they would be closing the hearing, and then you'd be running the risk for reviewing a draft decision with only 3 members.
right.
That is the applicant's prerogative. If they want a decision to be considered by the 3 remaining people on the board, that's their prerogative.
But that would be at the 10th also.
That would be on June 10th.
Yeah, so they need to ask to continue to the 10th.
No, what I'm
What
saying,
Joe's suggesting is the hearing is continued to the 20th. We are able to close on the 20th.
Right.
And then review a draft decision. So the people who, if the draft decision is then prepared for the 10th, there would be, regardless of what may or may not happen under the appointment, there would be 3 members of the board eligible to vote on that draft decision.
You think that,
and that's provided the board closes. If the board keeps it open because there are unresolved issues on the 20th, we have to re-advertise. And then end up on June 24th.
So
That's why I'm, from a timing wise, I know it looks like I'm pushing things back, but in some ways it's sort of hedging the bets that we give ourselves a chance to then consider something on the 10th. But all this is because if the applicant wants to proceed with 3 members, they're able to.
Yeah.
So
It's really up to you.
So let me, do you understand?
I have a
Paul?
request.
Could you need to come to the microphone?
Okay. I'm Robert T. Flynn Sr., and I don't want to take lightly what you guys are discussing there. But what if I wrote in, I'll be a write-in on the board member, and give you the affirmative vote, then there's 4 against 3.
I
Does
think
that-
that-
we're sitting on
does
the
that
board.
work?
There's
I think
something
Mr.
called
Hassinger-
ethics
Mr.
training.
Hassinger, does that work?
Conflict of interest.
Have you done the ethics training the state requires you to do?
Does you have to answer my question first. Does that work? And then I'll find out whether
Because
I
you wouldn't
need
be
it or
allowed
not.
to vote
Okay,
on the issue.
thank
You
you.
wouldn't
Thank
be
you
allowed to
for
sit on it.
taking the time to be light tonight, because I know you had a lot of tough issues to work on.
It's an interesting idea, but
Well, and there's no way that you can just like extend somebody's,
Well, we had a preliminary
Situation.
hearing,
You would-
and the board voted 4-0 that definitive, we should go forward with the definitive plan. So we're pretty solid that our plan is something that you
Yeah.
should be approved.
So let me put it this way, I think. Optimistically, if everything goes right, we can bring the hearing to a close on the 20th, and on the 10th of June, vote with 3 members of the board eligible to vote, and if we're optimistic, all 3 members will approve. If things don't play out with that most optimistic path, then we can schedule, we can advertise a hearing for the 10th, which may or may not come to pass, because if we don't have more of a, if we're not able to fill the vacancies in the board by the 10th, we will have to, the next opportunity will be the 24th, at which point we probably will have the vacancies filled. So it's like, the optimistic path is, as I said, close on the 20th, get 3 affirmative votes on the 10th, and you're done. The most pessimistic option is the next opportunity to have a hearing really could turn out to be the 24th of June.
but either way, if you did continue it to the 20th, that would be your best scenario. I mean, either way, you'd have to open a hearing if it didn't go well on the 20th, correct?
Yes, if things don't,
Right. If you go to the 10th,
go perfectly,
right.
then, in all likelihood, we're looking at the 24th before we can
Yeah.
close
Right.
on this.
Because everything that Graves has to be addressed, and there's all the turnaround time on
Right.
that.
Reading the review letter, most of the stuff is fairly, actually, we already began it today, making the revisions.
So if you can crack the whip and get people getting their stuff done.
That's right.
All the ducks in a row, it could actually happen by the
so-
10th.
What I'm hearing is, we've got 3 votes all the way through the 10th for sure. 3 available votes, I shouldn't say.
Assuming that he wins one of the 2 open seats.
Okay, well, if that happens, then
Yes, it's-
all is
Probability is
lost.
pretty high there.
I keep forgetting you're actually up for election. I'm always like thinking about Sharon's spot.
It is
I
not,
forget he's
it is not impossible for there to be 2 write-in candidates, both of whom get more votes than I do with my name on the ballot. I
I
don't
never
think
thought
ever-
there'd be a tie.
We,
It could happen.
we probably don't have to worry about that one too much.
No.
But, you know,
Hypothetically.
we've had just as stranger things happen. We ended up tied,
Second place tied last time.
second place tie.
So what I'm hearing is that with some members leaving, our optimistic route brings us to the 10th with 3 potentially
with
available
it,
members.
yeah.
And if worst case scenario, we end up re-advertising and coming back.
Yes, and in that case here, we could end up not being able to commence a public hearing until the 24th, which, in the very best of all possible worlds, it would be a one-night public hearing, and then the decision would come in July.
Which would be, I mean, storyboard and that's out of my head, would be nice to be able to have, either scenario would be able to have, say, Graves, we've addressed all of Graves' concerns with regards to the design.
We've been over this now for about 20 minutes.
Okay.
Let's decide on, well.
What plan you want?
Your option.
She has a piece of paper, tell her what date to write in on it.
Can I just?
Yeah. We were doing well on time.
You can't somebody can't extend for like a month or so, right? It's gotta be
No, you'd have to be appointed.
appointed, right? And then that wouldn't work either.
First, a vacancy has to exist, then it has to be advertised.
Well, technically a vacancy does
Yes,
exist.
Oh, yeah, we got another one.
No, have you-
provided that Mike has
No.
submitted the appropriate
You wanna look at my
formal
screen?
notification.
That's
the
true,
vacancy
vacancy
has-
does exist.
Yeah.
Joe, or, Mr. Chairman, sorry. Is Graves aware of this board change? I mean, you
Yes,
probably have a few
Graves is
projects.
aware of the change because it's impacted our ability to schedule an initial public hearing for other applications. We've pushed those back to June 24th because those are special permits. And there's no way I was going to advertise a special permit for June 10th, not knowing if I'd even have 4 members on the board.
Correct.
Actually, and we're down one more, the associate, so we don't even have somebody to sit in.
Exactly.
Well, this is a definitive, so he doesn't.
Right.
So
Yeah.
is Graves kind of on board to try to, if something goes along, to try to push it? I mean, am I out of order to try to contact him directly, go over the plan?
I think I think it's basically just business as usual. If you're already responding to those comments and you submit those, he's gonna turn them around in order to get to us, and I just let him know that if we're looking at the 20th, we're looking at the 20th.
I think, the applicant would like to try to proceed under the best case scenario. If we have to adjust due to changes in the board, we will.
Is there any pressure you can put on Graves, Joe, in knowing that we're gonna turn these comments around and see if he can look at them quickly?
I don't have any ability to
ask
put
him.
pressure on him to move things along. I'm able to let him know we need things by a certain date, but it always is incumbent on making sure that he gets things in advance notice. We know that he can turn around things pretty quickly. We try to give him a week to have a week in advance of our planning board meeting to get that material. If you get it to him sooner, gives him more time. He also, things that are coming from us, because he has applications that he doesn't need the reviews done for a while because of opening it up, that should actually free up some space. So I'm not really worried about his ability to turn around comments, because at least it's the second set of comments, and he's just responding to what he already raised.
Yeah. Okay. That's what I think we'd like to do, Mr. Chairman.
It sounds like we have a request from the applicant to continue this hearing to May 20th.
Yes.
Yep.
And turn my comment into a motion that the board grant the applicant's written request to continue this hearing to Monday, May 20th, 2019 at 7:30 PM.
Second.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, so voted unanimously. Oh, dear. Okay. Okay, we have other business, so if you want to talk, please.
Do I need to be here on the 20th of May, or just my engineer?
He does.
Because I have a wedding that weekend, I just remembered. I'll be
Yep.
in Indiana.
No, just
As
him.
long as your engineer is here to represent your interests, that's what counts on the 20th.
Okay, that'll be fine. I'd like to move it as quickly as we can. And I understand your dilemma.
Yep, you understand the risks, but you're going to be optimistic.
But your dilemma is my dilemma.
Yeah.
Yeah. When was the last time someone didn't want to move it along as quickly as possible?
Really.
I mean, we understand, but okay, can we,
Moving on.
return to,
The days
12 Elm Street is what we were
well,
talking about.
yeah, I guess we sort of kind of in the middle of that, although we have an item
We
before that
didn't
we held
finish
off
it,
on.
but, right.
Yeah, we got partway into our discussion on Elm Street, so.
I hope we're as far through as,
Yeah, I think the question was how to deal with the discrepancy between the plan and the narrative regarding the number of bedrooms.
Right.
I mean, I was okay with just adding a second finding after that, or a note to that finding, indicating that the plans only reflect an office and not a second bedroom, and that would need to be reconciled at some point. Isn't that what you guys said?
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
of the things he said, and I think I suggested doing that.
What really makes it different from an office and a bedroom? I mean, a bedroom can be used as an office. Is it just that it doesn't have storage?
Well, if I look at the plan, it looks like it's not even big enough to be a bedroom,
Yeah.
The label says
does look-
office
and it
instead of
says
bedroom.
office, yeah.
But to Dave's point, the whether it's an office or a bedroom doesn't impact the decision.
No,
Right.
not at all.
So we shouldn't be even contesting that.
No.
Well, it's not about contesting, it's about
Well, no, it's-
clarifying it.
Yeah,
But
I think,
contesting the idea of that it's either we do it this way or do it that way. What we have before us is what it is. That doesn't affect the actual
yeah,
decision.
my thought was to note in a finding the discrepancy without, without requiring the discrepancy to be resolved as a condition of the
Right.
permit, because I don't think it makes a difference to the permit.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's perfect way to do it.
What-
So just add another finding.
Which of the two documents has the later date? Does the plan even have a date?
Let's see, the floor plan has May 17th, and then there is no date for the project narrative, but they were all received on the same day.
It can't be
17th.
May 17th.
I meant March. Sorry, I saw an M.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
March.
MA, whatever, March,
I got
May,
2 out of 3
whatever.
right.
They're all part of the application.
Exactly. They're all submitted at the same time. So the question ends up being, because we say approved as presented in the application, we make a distinction between the floor plan submitted indicates 1 bedroom rather than the narrative that indicates 2 bedrooms. Do we allow for a second on that first floor, provided there's no expansion, or we tie it to as proposed on the floor plan?
Do we need to?
I don't think we,
Does the decision have to say how many bedrooms?
Yeah, I don't know
It's-
that we're approving the floor plan, we're approving the conversion from a one-family to two-family.
The reason is that bedrooms can indicate occupant load, and then that impacts parking. So if all of a sudden each of these got converted into a 3-bedroom unit, 6 bedrooms compared to 4, you could conceivably then have an impact on
Back-
parking.
So back to what I think I suggested, which is approve the 1 bedroom with a note. If they want to change it in the future, they need to come back.
Because there'll already be, if they wanted to do a bump out of the building, they'd have to come back.
oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, if they were changing the footprint, a lot of the decisions were based on it being the same footprint.
Right.
So,
Yeah, that's a separate problem,
right.
but
Okay.
Or an up to 2. I mean, we're saying there's adequate parking. Like, I don't want to result it if this
Yeah.
if this is a human error or transposing error, whatever it might be. I don't want to result in the applicant having to pay another fee to change a clerical error.
yeah.
well,
And-
I'm not sure whether Joe said that. He said come back for us to determine
We,
whether it's.
we could require that they submit a revised floor plan for us to review for consistency with the decision.
And I don't know, do we have minor, yeah, we have minor,
Minor modification.
Yeah.
modifications of
Yep.
site plan. Well, no, this is special permit, so
Right.
be the usual process.
Yeah.
And I say, let's do that so that we can go home tonight.
No matter what, we're going home tonight.
I-
To have you
I'm-
guys
I'm
vote to
losing- I'm losing
extend
hope
past 2 hours,
I'm
that's
losing
a
hope
lot.
here.
Yeah.
We were doing great. We were doing great.
Oh, you mean I won't get to vote to extend beyond 10 p.m. one more time?
Come on, we got to do it for Mike.
All right, so would,
We could vote, but not actually have to take advantage. You can make the motion now.
I could. Yeah.
Okay,
would that be best expressed as a condition of
Yes.
the special permit?
All right.
So with the addition of a condition specifying that
Yes.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly
exactly what he said.
what he said.
Exactly what he said. But can we vote this tonight? Are you gonna have to type it up, or can we vote it like, do it?
I mean, I have to type it up. We have to do the vote, and then the board would have to just approve the decision.
Yeah. Well, so we're not going home until you type it up. Shall we have you
I
type it up?
don't have. Let me see if
Oh.
I have network access.
Oh, you know, I think we should be having a meeting with somebody.
Let's see.
you really think that it kind of healed itself? I doubt it.
What, the network?
Yes.
No, it hasn't. But my,
We've been testing it the whole time.
but
Refresh.
my my book, my iBook, iPad, keeps dropping, Joe.
Yeah.
And
Oh, really?
yeah, I know it gives
No.
up the connection.
It's connected, but no internet.
Yeah.
It's not gonna
So
resolve tonight.
I can go back to my desk, connect to Ethernet, load it on here, and then come back and do that.
It's gonna have to happen sooner or later, before we go home.
Okay, so
That's-
that ultimately is the question, because I was lost as far as whether or not you wanted to take 5 minutes at town meeting to
No.
to review and approve.
I want to get it done.
So can you get this condition written in 15 minutes or less?
Yeah.
Okay, then we can
be-
go off air for 15
15-minute
minutes.
recess?
Is there anything else we can work on?
Not
You
really.
can talk amongst yourselves. You can review the correspondences.
Sure.
We can't look at the, what about the reports?
Reports.
We don't, well, okay, we'll do one or two of those before we take our whatever, break.
I don't have any report.
You know, well, let's see. We did bills.
We can't look at like the zoning board report,
We can't do what?
the draft report for the, bylaw changes?
We probably could, actually, because I don't, if anything comes up, we'll talk to Joe when he comes back.
Right.
All righty, well,
And I will have one nit on that.
all righty.
I was gonna have two nits, but you beat me to one of them.
Oh, well. You gotta be quick these days.
Yeah. All right, so what's next?
I need to,
Planning
I'm
board
not gonna
report.
need that. You know, paper is a good thing. It is,
Paper is not dependent upon network connectivity.
it does require there be enough light to read,
Yes.
but,
Yes, paper does require a source of light, which may or may not be electrical.
you know,
Paper, the batteries never run out on paper.
Italian on that last decision for 12L. My name is typed wrong, so if you could just correct that too. The last decision, 12 Elm. It's just my name is written.
I know, I didn't do that, I'll look at it,
Okay.
well,
just in the body, right?
Well, it was in the beginning as well as in the approval.
Okay. So before we submit it, I'll make sure.
Okay.
What was the other?
It was just the spelling of my last name.
I'd fix it now if I could, but I can't.
Yeah. Okay,
I didn't see this letter until now,
Which letter?
this one.
Which?
About from this engineering company that's proposing on land at 155 George Hill Road,
Oh, yeah,
the 4 megawatt solar.
yeah, that's down the far end, I think. Pretty much at the far end, because it's, part of the address is Leland,
Yeah. Huh,
4 megawatt.
yeah.
I think that's the largest that we've heard. So,
well, that's quick. Done already? Huh? Done already?
He's just dragging it over to the desktop.
okay. We are there. This. Well, are there any reports from planning board representatives? And CMRPC?
Well, the Open Space and Recreation Plan Committee had a meeting 1 week ago at which some progress was made towards completing the revision of the Open Space and Recreation Plan. The committee thinks maybe there's a chance of having the revision completed by the end of June and ready for review and approval by the appropriate town boards and committees.
Any other reports?
Not a committee report, but I will use
The opportunity.
the opportunity in 2 seconds of airtime to thank voters in Grafton. This will be my last official meeting as a member of the planning board. I'm relocating for work to the state of Texas, so this is the last hurrah, if you will. But thank you for the votes of confidence. Thank you to my colleagues here on the board. Thank you to staff. It's been a good 9 years.
Until the next time.
Until next time.
Okay.
We're gonna miss you.
Thank you for your service.
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
And congratulations on
Yes.
the
Tremendous
opportunity that
opportunity.
you're taking. We will miss you.
Have
Thank
you
you.
found a house down there at all?
Yeah.
We have.
Oh,
Yeah.
so you're really going.
Oh yeah, the house here is closing on May 30th. The house there is closing on May 31st. So, and I'll be there by mid-June.
The airlines be willing, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, I'm driving down, so it's more like the roads be willing.
From here to
Oh yeah,
Texas in how many hours?
it's 29 hours of driving ultimately, but I'm with work. I'm
Yeah.
doing it across 5 days.
You're not going to be there for the closing of the house in Texas.
You
For
said-
Texas
you said the-
closing, I will be. Yes.
Okay, so you're leaving,
I
you're
won't be
leaving
here.
before the 30th.
Yes. Correct.
Someone else is doing whatever needs to be done.
Power of attorney for here. So.
Okay, that explains it. And that explains why this is the last meeting.
Correct.
In case anybody out there, I know there are a lot of you watching, haven't quite figured this out. We're losing 2 members. There's a chance to write in for one of them on election day. The other one has to be filled by appointment. There'll be some sort of an announcement very soon, asking for people to step forward and offer on the appointment. You can do that. You can also, as I say, do write-in. Based on the number of write-ins I've seen on most of the elections, it wouldn't take too many.
Well, at least one thing, in correspondence, there actually,
Yeah,
in correspondence, there actually is something interesting. I don't know what I did.
you turned the camera on.
I didn't mean that there's a proposed 4 megawatt solar, I don't know, on George Hill Road down at the Leland Hill end. Just for giggles someday, drive on George Hill Road. Eventually, it's going to be a cow path because it's not going to be worked on for a very long time. But what they show here as conditions is real. And there's no fire access back there. I have a feeling this is going to be a little while developing.
Well, most of the solar farms, the big ones, have tended to take a while.
Well, this one certainly isn't ready for prime time yet.
But I don't think many people are aware of it yet. Any other reports from town committees, et cetera? I know the library building committee met in the room behind us,
They do that.
so Linda wasn't really able to be there.
I was here.
Be there.
I know. Well, I was near. I was in the
Did you
vicinity.
pick up what was going on?
No, I did not.
All right, I guess we've got all of those. Notice all we've got is staff report and
Yeah, because the notice of
the-
intent doesn't mean.
You got Estabrook, you gotta
yeah,
get through.
I know we have Estabrook and we have the report.
Yep.
Are you ready?
Yes.
And this is for the
This
Whatever.
is for 12. So what I did was add another finding under the existing 7, which is where we identified 2 bedrooms. Actually, I'm going to do this C because that's the existing, that's the narrative. Identified the new finding is number 8, that the board noted the Exhibit 1C narrative and the Exhibit 1E floor plans differed for the first floor apartment, which indicated 2 bedrooms in the narrative versus 1 bedroom in the floor plan. So that basically is just making a note as far as our observation between that narrative 1C and exhibit 1E. Then when we come down to conditions, I put in a new condition 2, that this this special permit and site plan approval grants approval for a 1-bedroom unit on the first floor and a 2-bedroom unit on the second floor. Should the applicant seek approval for a second bedroom on the first floor, a revised floor plan must be submitted to determine if it is consistent with this decision and pursuant to condition 9 below. 9 below basically says, is a standard language that we have. Let me just merge these two things here. This is sort of the standard process for reviewing if something is then acceptable to the board as far as a minor modification. Any modifications to the use or site as described in this decision as presented to the board, blah, 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 shall require prior to implementing such change determination from the planning board as to whether proposed change is substantially different than presented in materials and information used for making this decision. Reserve the right for comments. And the planning board may, upon its determination, require modification of this decision if necessary, if it finds the proposed changes are substantial. So that's our standard sort of language for changes, and basically just referred, you tell us those, that revised floor plan, we then review it under, consistent with this condition 9.
Okay.
So you didn't add any conditions, you just modified C2?
I added that clarification in C2, should the applicant seek approval for a second bedroom on the first floor, submit a revised floor plan, and then follow condition C9 below.
Sounds good.
Okay. And And then where did I have? Oh, that's why. Okay,
And at the beginning, it's spelled wrong too.
same thing? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, so I will move that the board find favorably on the findings as listed in the revised draft decision, that the board grant the requested waivers, and that the board approve, what's the language? Is this a site plan and special permit?
Yes.
That the board, let's see, go down there. The board grant the application for special permit and site plan approval with the conditions all as presented in the revised draft that's on the screen.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted unanimously. Back to,
Planning board report.
our,
Warrant articles?
yeah, we do, do you wanna do that? I don't know, do we have anything we really are, how much are we gonna have to worry about the, notice of intent?
So the planning board approved that special permit for those two solar facilities. So
Oh, I know.
we're not opening up like a different area as far as the Esbrook property. These are just those areas that were the solar. So
Yes, and we knew at the time we approved those
right.
two solar facilities that the property was currently under 61A and that it would be withdrawn at some point in the future.
Right.
So,
So,
this is as we did recently on another notice of intent. What do we have to say about it? To send forward, what do we have to say about it?
Let me move that the
the
board
withdrawal.
recommend to the Board of Selectmen that the town not exercise its right to purchase these two parcels.
Yes.
Was that a second?
Yeah, a second.
Ah. Moved and seconded, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Which brings us back to the first thing on the agenda. Almost. Well, we may get this to 10 o'clock. All right, we're going. Well, no. Okay. We already acted, did we not, on 7, on the one that we had the hearing?
The 43D, we closed the hearing.
Yep.
Oh, but we didn't do the
I think we
report.
think we deferred action on
Okay.
the draft
Okay,
report.
let's, let me see. That's here. 7, yeah, that's also included in our 5-page.
Yeah, so this
draft,
is
so
presented to us as a single
yes.
draft report
Right.
on all
Let's-
warrant articles.
Let's take Article 30. Comments? Corrections? Anything?
I had nothing on that one.
No.
Nobody?
Nope.
Article 31, village mixed use.
I had a couple things.
Yes?
Well, I'd like to change the language where it says, Member Carol Tidman objected to the property being in the district when it's referring to the gas station. I'd just like to clarify my objection. And that, and I'd just like to add there, because the bylaw does not allow gas stations. So,
But it's grandfathered.
the sentence before says, board members discuss the properties within the district and specifically whether the new gas station should be zoned village mixed use. Member Carol Tidman objected to the new gas station should be zoned village mixed use. Right. Member Carol Tidman objected to the property being in the district while other members stated the property should be in the district for consistency in the neighborhood. And I just want to add there, Member Carol Tidman objected to the property being in the district because the bylaw does not allow gas stations.
So I just added that to the report and the highlighted text on the screen. I just corrected that or amended that sentence to reflect that a little bit more accurately.
Okay.
You know, it actually causes the gas station, well, the convenience store, to be a non-conforming legal use,
Right. Well, which,
Which is fine, lots of places are,
yeah, no, but in terms of language.
yeah.
which
Clarifying it
I
even
think
further,
it's
yeah.
clearer to people who aren't, as into this
Right.
as we are, what you were saying. You got an extra M.
I saw that. I see the-
Oh, other men, okay. I see, okay.
yep.
Okay?
Yeah, and the only other piece to that is that I did not vote for this, so you need
Okay.
to change those. It was 4-1 vote.
Four to one, okay. Ready to go on to Article 32. VMU TV. Anything?
I had nothing on that.
Yeah, me neither.
Article 33.
I do have that.
Marijuana retailers in CB.
Yes, I have a nit on that one.
Yes?
At the end of the paragraph just above the final paragraph based on the board's deliberations. Board members discussed at town meeting February 18 did not pass the zone article to include marijuana retailers in the community district. That's kind of awkwardly worded, though it do receive. Did not pass the article, zoning article. While it received a majority of votes, it did not receive the 2/3 required.
Yeah.
There's a mistake in that sentence, period. It's thought instead of though.
Yes, that's part of what I wanted.
Well, that's- I
do is.
I
Yeah.
correct.
totally not
I
right.
have it as though now.
Okay.
Though it did not. Though it did receive majority of votes, it did not receive the 2/3
2/3,
required.
right. Okay.
We know the count, or we know the percentage.
We can
Let
get
it
down
be.
to the decimal point too if we want.
Okay.
Well,
To how many places?
We can say just shy by 10 votes.
Well, it was less than that.
Yeah, it was.
The point is, it was a really small margin,
Yes,
like
it-
6 votes, I think.
It was a few votes short, and I don't have the number off the top of my head. I know I sent it around to the board a while back, and I don't, it's probably.
Okay, moving on.
Is that all on that one?
Yep.
All right. 34, multi-level dwellings, multifamily dwellings, affordability. Anything?
I had no comments on that one.
Anybody else?
Mesa Verde
No.
is not going to be built here.
All right. Article 37,
It's the citizen-
marijuana
Yep.
manufacturers. It still says retailers.
Because I sent this out.
I know.
I
It's
I
PDF.
corrected it on the server.
Yeah, okay.
Hold on.
That's been-
See.
And it's marijuana cultivation and manufacturing in village mixed use.
Hold on, because I sent you
Oh, that's right, it's in VMU.
Yep.
copy.
Ooh.
Word.
Oh, yeah.
VMU SG. Well, or
Yes.
maybe it'll be SG, depending
Yeah,
on.
what you sent out in the email was.
Yep.
Permit marijuana cultivation and marijuana manufacturing is a special permit use within the village mixed use district in South Grafton.
Yeah.
So that's the revised heading that Joe sent out.
Yep.
Okay, anything on that? No? No? All right,
Sharon, did I get the vote right on that? Did you
Yes.
Okay.
So the one that, yeah, we'll go back to that once we're done here, because
Okay.
I gotta go back to
what are we-
my email.
what do we,
Well, it
I'm
was
confused.
one of these that the voter record was not. It looked like it had been copied from the marijuana. Why don't you guys go on? I didn't have any other objections to that. I'll go find it.
all right, anyway, Article 17, 43D priority
Okay.
development.
Yeah, it was in here.
Per our discussion earlier this evening, I think we were leaning towards removing 2 of the 3 parcels from it. So the report would be to, the board recommends acceptance of Article 17 with an amendment to eliminate those 2.
Is an amendment necessary, or could the motion?
Actually, no, the motion could say that. This is the warrant article, but, you know, we could recommend passage of this with those 2 eliminated.
Yeah, and reflected in whoever reads the motions.
Yep.
Yeah, you just gotta modify the parcels, right?
So, yeah,
That one.
it's just, when the motion is made, the motion would include only the 1 parcel. It's otherwise fairly short, so the motion would be, the motion would be self-contained. It would not be one of the motions that says as printed in the warrant.
What I try to do is avoid trying to have amendments in our recommendations whenever we can, because it just makes things go
Yes,
less
this does-
well.
Yeah, this does not require an amendment. This simply
All right.
requires a motion to reflect our recommendation.
Okay.
Okay, so
With
what
that.
I'm writing is that basically during discussion on the article, the board noted 2 small westerly parcels, whoops, should be excluded from the district, and that 244 Worcester Street, map 35, parcel 1 should be the only parcel contained in the chapter 43D priority
6 development.
development overlay district. Here, planning board voted unanimously to recommend, so, because we can't say of the article because,
With the above, change, or for parcel 1.
With the acceptance of the Article 17 modified as described above, something like that. Well, not modified, that doesn't sound quite right.
No, we're recommending approval of it with just 1
Right.
rather than 3.
Acceptance of Article
And that'll
17.
fit with, hopefully, with the motion that's read. And,
Yes, we'll just have to make sure that the motion gets,
because that should be
Presented
within the
correctly.
scope.
yes, I think it's quite clearly within the scope.
um,
Map, whatever. Map 35. Is it parcel 1,
Yeah.
Yes.
244? Yeah. Anything more?
Nope.
Hearing none, thank you.
Did Sharon have something on a previous item?
No, it actually has nothing to do with this, and it has nothing to do with this meeting. It's 88 Worcester Street, which isn't even on the agenda of this meeting, so we can talk about it after.
okay.
It just,
I did watch the video and
no,
it's,
but the voter record on that decision
Yeah.
has a voter record of something else.
oh, okay.
That's what I was trying to
Okay.
point out. It just
Okay, yeah.
looked like it was copied and pasted in, and you just need to
Okay.
correct it.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
How about a motion to approve the
planning board report on the various proposed zoning amendments to the Grafton zoning bylaws with the changes noted during discussion here tonight.
Seconded?
Moved and seconded. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Do we have any staff report?
Just like to let you know that starting next week, we're going to start interviews for the vacant position, the 15th, and then 1 or 2 days the following day, or following week. So it's going to be good to get going on that. I've also advertised for a intern within the planning department. We're getting responses. Want to try to get someone in end of May. Primary work would be on 2 items. One, assisting with the rollout for Viewpoint, and once departments start using it, to make sure that they can help revising some of the processes and keep track of things, since that will be a little too much for me to do by myself. Second thing is that there was a recent MMA article about small cell facilities and FCC regulations that require towns to, as of April 15th, to adopt regulations. We don't have anything, so that would be a special project for the intern to work on, collecting things from other towns, and then we can work with the planning board to come up with something.
What kind of regulation is required? I don't know much about.
Basically permitting. So basically, it basically says they can just go right to building department to they can just seek approval from a building department for permitting small cell. That's what FCC at least is sort of indicating, but it also identifies that there can be other things that are taken into consideration if you have regulations, but not having anything, then there's no standard for any sort of review. So want to be able to do some research and identify what best practices other towns are doing. For a lot of towns, this is not on anyone's radar. So when saw the article in MMA, I was a little bit by surprise, because usually some of these things come across the planning listserv well in advance to give us a little bit of time, but this one caught us a little bit by surprise, and a lot of other planners just well, we'll just deal with it once it comes.
Well, our cell tower section doesn't say anything about the size of the cell.
No, it doesn't.
So it
And
applies to any cell until
the challenge is, you know how even when we're doing just the antenna fit outs and we get that whole song and verse, want to be able to do the research and find out what we are able to do, because yes, you are correct that we would just back up our bylaw, but then
I wonder how in danger we are of having any small cell deployment. Anybody would.
If we were a little bit more urban, we probably would. I don't really think that we necessarily would be, but that is something that we need to pay a little bit more attention to, and it would give an opportunity to sort of revisit some of our how we handle those minor amendments a little bit more. When Dave Maxon was talking to us for one of the last applications, he did say he really should look at trying to update some of those procedures to reflect the Jobs Act from 2012. So that addressed it. So at least we'll have some ability to do some research. You all were forwarded a sort of like an event, Evite, that's going on Thursday. Lieutenant Governor Polito is coming out. They're doing, the Baker Polito administration is doing a lot of visits to communities, highlighting their housing bill and trying to support creating housing. So we were chosen as a community to have such an event. It's going to be in South Grafton. Looks like today and tomorrow are the only days this week that will have sun. The rain backup location is South Grafton Community House. So while it would have been great to have it on Mill Villages, Mill Villages Park, overlooking the hopeful at some point Fisherville Mill development, we may have to move it to an indoor location depending on weather, but officials, of course, are invited to attend. Other things that are going on. Bob and I are continue to work on some of the viewpoint things. We are actually getting quite a few applications coming in. That's where it's I've been upfront with people submitting, telling them like you could actually be denied because we don't have enough people. So they've been at least accommodating, saying, okay, let's kick off until the June 24th meeting. You have one reference application. They at least are viewing it as the glass is half full, being able to revise and address some of their engineering well in advance of that hearing. They do have conservation, so they'll go through that before getting to us. I've already communicated to some of the other applicants, like what we're having in 2 weeks with the multifamily, as far as the position of the board, as far as looking what to do. So everyone is aware as far as just the unique circumstance that we're dealing with, and at least is pretty understanding, because they need 4 people to vote in the affirmative, so they sort of have to be. As Dave said, hopefully we're nearing the end of the open space plan. I'm meeting with them on Wednesday to go over the final maps and some text as far as making sure that it's related within the maps are referenced properly within the text. And then lastly, working with John Allen, we're doing 2 items that the board may be interested in, doing a survey of MBTA commuter users, people who commute and go to the MBTA station in Grafton. Also with some funds from EDC and also donations from Grafton, Homefield Credit Union. We're undertaking a hotel feasibility study, just to see as far as whether or not anything out towards the commuter rail station or even along Worcester Street, due to the proximity of the Pike, may be something that such a use may even be possible. It's just a feasibility study. John, in his previous work in Franklin, had done a lot of work with locating a hotel off of 495 for Franklin. However, no one will talk to anyone in the town if there isn't some basic level of study that's done. So that's just what's doing it, just to identify if it can be part of a larger project within either Centec Park or even Wyman Court. So that's something that is going on right now.
The Baker Polito thing, that's where the governor went to take away our 2/3 supermajority vote on
Zoning changes that to allow some.
It's probably a good thing that I won't make it down there, because everyone will walk away in one piece. Not that I'm not unhappy with it or anything, but is there anything else that can lawfully come before us?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Not debatable. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted.